How's it guys? Welcome to sunny South Africa. I'm Clarice, you're on the Live Ready channel, and I'm going to share my best tips for batoning wood using your knife, the do's, the don'ts, and all the considerations in between. Wonderful sunny day in South Africa. Summer is on its way back, and of course with summer come all of the mosquitoes, which I didn't prepare for today. Completely forgot to put my mosquito spray on, but I hope you took your malaria tablets, because this is what I look like by now. If you can see that, look at that, just eaten alive by the mozzies. And of course I'm wearing sandals because we are going across the river. So there, beautiful day. Careful of hippos, crocodiles, otters and snakes. Right, here we go. I know there's a lot of controversy. Should you use your knife to baton wood? Should you not? What knife should you use? Is it only allowed if you have a chopper or not? The reality is that most people are going to be carrying something like this with them if they're lucky, and if they are actually prepared enough to carry a knife with them when they're out in the wild or if they get lost. And the situation that you might find yourself in is one where you need to process wood for a fire and you need a bit of kindling, but you're still going to need to do a bit of processing after that in order to get a fire started. This is a Mora Companion. It is probably not the best knife to do this with. The reason why is it's got a rat tail tang, so it's not a full tang knife. It might not break now, but at some point when you're in the field you might actually find that your knife breaks because you've been batoning wood with it for a long time or in the past or whatever. So not the ideal, but I am going to use this for demonstration purposes today because it is something that most people would be carrying with them in field. A couple of other considerations and things to look at is the kind of wood that you're looking to process with your knife. So something like this looks like it's not a very good piece of wood to process with a knife or to baton, but if you turn it sideways it's actually not that thick a piece of wood. So let's have a look at what this looks like. So it does have some gnarly bits here and there, and those are things that we want to avoid. But something like this piece here, it's got nice straight grain and it's actually not a particularly thick piece of wood. So if the circumference of your piece of wood or the area that you're going to try and baton through is thicker than half the length of your blade, then I say that you're starting to take chances and you're going to be putting a lot of stress on that blade. And because the longevity of your blade is super important, you want to be able to preserve that blade and the integrity of it. Having said that, it is also very important to carry a secondary blade with you or a secondary knife with you in field always, so that if you lose your first one or it breaks for whatever reason, that you do have a second knife with you. For this you would rather have a hatchet with you. I wouldn't try to saw through the middle of this, but a hatchet or an axe, that's definitely going to help you with this guy. The reality is that not everybody carries a hatchet or an axe with them in the field, so it's not always realistic to expect yourself, you know, to carry like every piece of equipment with you in the bush. If you do find yourself in a scenario where you do have to try and get through something like this, I'd go for maybe start on the edge and just take off edges of it. We want to exploit any sort of weaknesses that there are or grooves that there are in the wood. So there's a nice crack over there that I can quite easily baton my knife through to get all the way through the length of that if I needed to get a bit of kindling out of this. Wet wood or something that's just come off a tree is going to be a lot denser and a lot more difficult and put a lot more strain on your blade if you're trying to baton through that. And something like this one, for example, that's got a whole bunch of knots in it, I would avoid any places where I can see there are knots or gnarly bits, because the trajectory of the wood grains in that area makes it so dense, so it's actually more likely that you're going to damage your knife if you are trying to baton right through that. So this one over here is actually going to be my baton. The other thing that you want is a nice stable surface for you to work on, a nice hard surface. Something that you can use to stabilize your wood on so it doesn't go into the ground or into the sand. And if you don't have a log like this, simply putting something, another piece of wood underneath is going to be helpful already. Then you want to try and use a flat surface to put your lumber down on. So if the one end is sharp or pointy, then try the other end if that's going to be a bit more stable. Remember, we are working with a blade and we don't want to risk injuring ourselves. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put my knife in my left hand because I'm right-handed, and I'm going to find whatever groove I want to go through. So there's a nice groove over there, and all I'm going to do is give it a few taps, and you can see that it's already started splitting that wood there. And the reason why I tap it in is because now I've got more stability and a better grip and better control over the piece of wood that I'm batoning through. And all I need to do now is baton on the end of the knife here. I don't want to go right on the tip, I just want to go on the end. I don't want to baton where the blade meets the handle or where the stock metal runs into the handle, because that could be a weak point. And now that I'm starting to get lower down, I'm going to start slowing down, because a mistake that I've made in the past is to actually baton my knife right through onto the surface that I'm working on, and you can actually damage the sharp belly of your blade, and you can dull your blade by batoning it right down into the surface that you're working on. So what you want to do is stop just before the end, and give it a nice twist, and that all comes off. And so I can work this down until I'm all the way through this piece of wood. Again, considering the grain. Now, batoning is not just for processing tinder for firewood. Sometimes you might find yourself needing to take a limb off a tree or take a branch off because you want to build a shelter, or you need to build a pot hanger or something like that. And what you would do then is you would take your knife at an angle, like I did with this branch. Take your knife at an angle and baton into the wood at an angle. So we never want to baton into the wood straight on perpendicular to those fibers, because it puts a lot of strain on the blade once again. So you want to go at an angle, similar to what you would do or how you would create a beaver chew cut, or the beaver chew technique for cutting wood. You go into the wood at an angle until you've come all the way around. Now this one was sitting really low to the ground, so I couldn't actually get to the bottom here. It's actually good because then I don't use my knife for that last bit, so I save the blade in that last bit of breaking the branch off. The trouble that we have here now is that if I start to baton in here, then there's no stability for me down there. And if I start to baton up here, there's no stability for me there either. So I'm going to struggle to get my knife into it in the first place. So what I can do to overcome this problem is I can put my branch down, and then I can baton the knife into it this way, and then twist it halfway through, because then I've got enough of my blade in the branch, and then I can continue batoning as I usually would. So now I've got a bit more control over this piece of wood here, and all I need to do is I need to twist my knife away from me, and once again I have got enough control over this branch for me to baton through it. The problem that I have now is that I've got all of these knots and mosquitoes to work through, so what I can do is make a little stop cut for myself just before I get to a knot that's going to be in my way. I can go past that one, that one's fine. I'll pass that one, that one's fine. This one might be a little bit in my way. That one's definitely going to be in my way. So what we'll do is we'll baton down to it until I feel I'm getting stuck. And it even just breaks open by itself, so it's fine. Remember that batoning is not just for processing tinder for firewood. You might need to baton something just to make a little stop cut in a branch in order for you to be able to carve out a pot hanger or a toggle or a tent peg or something like that. And even when you do that, take these things into consideration in order to preserve the longevity of your knife and of your blade, and to make life simple and easy for yourself. Well, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, remember to like and subscribe, and until the next time, live ready.